All right, so we have the drive off. What we're going to do now is we're going to take apart this whole bell housing so that we can do the bellows and everything. I have a helper up front. They've turned left, and what I'm going to do now is this is the trim sender gauge. This pretty much controls the needle that tells you how high your drive is. All right, so you'll see it comes out with these little bent washers. I like to work over a mat so that anything that falls can come out. All right, there's two of these. Just keep track of those, and then the gauge just kind of pops out. Now, this is how you set the trim. You have to push it in, and you see how it rotates. That controls the needle. So you have to sync that up after you do this job. There's no point trying to see where the position is and saving it, because that doesn't always stop in the same position and you're going to be off anyway. So that'll just hang off to the side there. Now bear in mind, these are prone to getting crushed. So when you're turning this left and right, and one of these is kind of hanging here, you can crush it. So just make sure it's out of the way. Another way we like to do it is just pick them both up and tie them up at the top here so that they're out of the way from getting crushed. All right, so I've got that off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the hinge pin. So I like to use a big impact on this. This is the 12-point tool, and the back end of it is just a 6-point half-inch. So I have a half-inch socket on my impact, and just make sure that this is in all the way. Don't try and do it halfway. These can get very stuck. So I'm going to impact this off. Okay, this one came out, and that's the hinge pin bolt over there. So I'm just going to put that in our parts box. Down here, just lay that there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have my helper turn to the right. I'm going to just keep these trim rams off the ground just a little bit. There you go. That's good. And now I'm going to repeat the same. I'm going to undo the Phillips. This is the trim limit switch, and what this does is it allows you to only trim up to a certain amount, and then it stops. After that, you have to use the trailer button. These are very prone to just cracking and giving way, so people sometimes just twist the wires together so that up will trailer your boat. Get this one out. Get this one out. Okay. I'll just save these little guys. Trying to not run it all the way out, because then I will drop it. See how they have these little bent washers. If you lose it, it's fine. You can just put the screw back in as well. Now we're going to repeat. Just get the trim limit switch off. This has been very well greased and it's very dirty. So I'm trying to keep my tool a little bit clean. Try and wipe some of this grease off. Not quite sure why they have to put so much in there, but okay. All right. Okay, there we go. That's your second hinge pin. I'll just put that in the parts box. Okay, so now I'll just explain. There are two fiber washers that sit right inside here. Sometimes they stay in place. All they do is they just reduce the wear as you're driving your boat and trimming up and down. But to be honest, if you're in a pinch and you don't have it, you could just leave it out and replace it again. Okay, so what we're going to do now is straighten this back out again. Turn a little to the left, just center it up, and probably go a little bit off to the right. Okay, a little more right. Keep going, keep going. It stopped. Oh, just go back. See the gauge, just like I said. Go the other way. No, other way. Yeah, all the way, all the way. Okay, there we go. That's good. So this is almost the correct orientation of the hose clamps. The lower shift hose clamp needs to be facing kind of upwards, and the U-joint clamp has to be facing downwards like that. So some people get it wrong. Now you can see this whole bell housing is loose. It's just out of alignment. You can kind of move it around. Here's the fiber washer I was talking about. It's a very tight fit, so you kind of, they usually fall out. But we'll pick it up in a bit. You can see it just kind of, it's just a thin fiber washer in there. What we're going to do is we're going to remove this hose clamp over here, the U-joint bellows. This is already loose because we were originally just doing a shift cable bellows, but we're going to replace everything for this customer. So I'm going to get those loose and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to get in here. What I have here is a 5/16 on a wobble socket. Now getting it off isn't so difficult. Sometimes getting it in, it's hard when this is kind of flopping around. So what I do is I'll put a piece of electrical tape around here twice, and that still adds some flexibility, but I can manipulate the socket. Okay, so I'm going to get in here, and at least this one I can just get it over the hose clamp up there, as you can see. And I'm just going to do this by hand. This wasn't actually very tight. Give it a whole bunch of turns because there is a ridge over there. I get it to where the hose clamp tongue just goes in. And then usually for the shift bellows, what you would do is you'd go in from the top, and just as I've mentioned, this is loose, but it would usually be in this orientation, and you would pretty much just go from the top of the wobble socket and you would just undo that. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we have to pry these bellows off here with the pry tool because they actually get glued on. Now it's a little tricky. It doesn't really matter. I'm replacing these, so I've just broken the shift bellows off. They do get bellows adhesive, so it's important to just kind of mess with it. This one doesn't even have adhesive on it. It's loose. I'll try and get in there in a second. Yeah, this is not even glued. Wow. So this piece, if this was glued on, there's no way I'd be able to just pop it off like that. It gets sticky and it gets a little messy. But anyways, the shift cable bellows is off. Let's try the U-joint now. The U-joint's a little trickier. There we go. That was easy. Also, doesn't look like they used U-joint bellows. So you'll see it's still attached over here on the left side, but once you pop that off and that off, you can pull the whole bell housing out. So let's see. Here's your power steering. So there it is. That's the bell housing coming loose. The bellows are detached from the transom. Mostly, I believe they're still stuck a little. Another trick I have is to take a long flat, and you can go from the inside and you can find where the bellows and the transom meet, and you can kind of just pierce the adhesive, you know, with a flat. Just go around in circles. A little hard to see, but I'm sticking my flat all the way in there, and I'm finding where the metal is and the rubber, and I'm going between, and I'm just basically pushing it through all the way. This is necessary when you have a very good adhesion, because that bellows adhesive is crazy. It's like space age stuff, and it really sticks. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to continue working on that, and when it does come off, finally, see, it's just being very difficult in that corner. I need to turn this a little to the right. Now, okay, so I straightened it out. Now you can see the whole bell housing is pretty much off the back of the boat. Gonna get these cables out of the way. The exhaust is still connected. By the way, the exhaust bellows is not critical at all. In fact, a lot of them come just cut in half. They're always submerged underwater. These are really not important. What's important is the shift bellows and the universal bellows. So I'm going to just quickly try and get this out of the way and show you guys how mangy this old grease looks. Now I'm going to point something else out to you that's very critical, especially on the old Alphas. This little section here, you see that metal ring that the bellows goes over? They like to corrode out down here. You end up with a huge chunk missing, and then the hose clamp doesn't have anywhere to tighten. And if it's small, I have been able to really clean it up with brake cleaner and put some putty there, but that's really temporary. The problem is, in order to change this, you have to pull the motor and replace the whole transom. So that's definitely something you want to pay attention to. Looks like they use normal RTV here, because this is not how bellows adhesive looks. So yeah, this thing, yeah, that's regular RTV. It's interesting. Very dirty. Okay. What we're also going to do is we're going to scoop out a lot of this old grease that's sitting in here for the new bearing to go in. Great. Okay. I'll just get a rag for that. Okay, we're going to cover a quick tip on rerouting the shift cable in. So what you do is you take the inner, which is this part, you pull it out from the back of the drive. Remember, we showed that on the previous video. Then you go to the inside of the motor and you stick it through with a pointy bit first, so that when you go pull this out, the outer sheathing, the person in the boat holds onto this. That way this will stay behind after you've pulled this out. So we're going to demonstrate that now. Okay, so you can see we're pulling the outer out, and there it comes out. See, the inner stays behind, and we'll leave that in place so that when we come in with a new cable, we're going to basically still use the old cable as a guide, and we're going to push it over there so that it routes the way it was supposed to. Okay, we're going to leave this here for now. Let me get the old hose clamp off. I don't know how these things sometimes just get so stuck when they're not attached. Okay, next up is the water pipe. It's kind of straightforward. Just the hose clamp right over there, and you can use the same socket if you want. I'll just use this. Now what you'll find with these is, over the years, they get very hard to remove. In fact, it'll get to a point where they're virtually impossible to get off. So what you have to do is try and get the hose clamp completely out of the way. With a pair of long needle nose pliers and a long flat screwdriver. You have to just try and walk the hose clamp away from where it has been sitting all these years. It helps to put a screwdriver under that pipe and just raise it off the boat a little. Come on. Like so. Alright. Now, as mentioned, you can try a pry bar, and you want to push from the right and just try and get the hose off. If that's too difficult, you just take a utility blade and you slice this section of the hose open right like this. You just cut this first inch until you're on the plastic, and then you put a flat screwdriver in and open the hose up, and it'll just come right off. So yeah, this hose is still soft and supple. It's actually soft. I've never seen these fail unless you've had a serious overheat situation. They go forever. So anyways, alright, so I'm gonna pry the hose off. It looks like it's coming off quite easily. There it is. Gonna have to work it from both sides. and then eventually get this little cable off here. That's tight. There it is. So there's the water tube. It's off now. There are two sizes. Usually in the kits you'll get two sizes of these. I believe it's 5/8 or 3/4. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's something along those lines. And lastly, the exhaust bellows. Just take it off from here. I like to leave it on at the transom, and honestly, a lot of the time I'll just reuse the exhaust bellows because they are a nightmare to get on and to have them stay on. And honestly, if you don't feel like messing with them, like I said, you can just cut it in half and leave half on the transom, literally. In fact, a lot of the newer Bravo kits don't even come with a full bellows anymore. Even though this is not a Bravo, it just demonstrates that it's not critical. Jeez. Wow. This has been on here for a really long time. Damn it. Are you kidding me? Tighten this with the impact. Wow, this hose clamp is like really not playing along. Finally. Okay. Alright, so that's pretty much the inside of the transom. The lip here is in excellent shape, so very happy about that. Just go around here, just wipe off any grease. There shouldn't be, you know, if they've put a lot of adhesive on over the years, it'll just stay there. Just try and get most of it off. You don't have to be crazy. Just make sure there isn't any loose stuff in there. And all right, so we're gonna take this to the bench, and we're gonna prep it for installation.